Dior vs. Chanel. The eternal battle for elegance. There's a truth that almost no one admits. When you think of elegance, you don't choose an outfit. You choose a side to the story. And, strange as it may seem, this choice has always been divided between two forces that never agreed on what beauty is. Chanel said that elegance is freedom. Dior said that elegance is form. And the most curious thing? They were both right. And completely opposite at the same time. That's why this rivalry is so irresistible. A woman can spend years believing she prefers simplicity, until she tries on a dress that makes her feel like she was sculpted by the gods. Similarly, someone can be enchanted by the glamour of Dior, until they put on a Chanel suit and realize that freedom is also power. It's the kind of duality that messes with your head, challenges your convictions, and, as a bonus, reveals who you really are. In this video, you'll not only understand why these two fashion houses shaped fashion, you'll discover what they reveal about you, about your personality, about the type of elegance you seek, even without realizing it. And be prepared. The deeper we delve, the clearer it becomes that this battle was never about fashion, but about identity. And that's precisely why it will never end. The beginning of the invisible rivalry. When two ideologies of elegance were born. He always said that true elegance is born long before any sewing, and few stories prove this as well as that of Chanel and Dior. Before the public realized it, two completely different ideas about what it meant to be feminine began to grow silently in a world that was still rebuilding itself. Chanel emerged with a rebellious, almost unpretentious spirit, while Dior appeared with an almost poetic reverence for old-world glamour. It's curious how, sometimes, the greatest battles don't begin with a confrontation, but with visions that simply cannot share the same symbolic space. And there, almost unnoticed, one of the most elegant rivalries in history was born. What's most fascinating is that neither seemed interested in direct competition. Each only wanted to express their own truth. Chanel wanted freedom, to cut layers, loosen constraints, give movement to the body of a woman already carrying too much weight. Dior wanted beauty, to return to women a kind of lost royalty, a structured world where each curve seemed like a living sculpture. It's like watching two artists painting the same landscape, but seeing different colors, different textures, different intentions, and the public, unknowingly, was about to choose which world they wished to inhabit. This initial contrast created a strange magnetism. The more each strengthened their vision, the more the fashion world divided. Some sought the relief that Chanel offered. Others were enchanted by the dream that Dior promised. It was almost like watching two forces of nature walking side by side, knowing that, at some point, their paths would collide. And when that happened, fashion would never be the same. Something you will understand even more clearly when we delve into the story of Coco Chanel. Coco Chanel, the woman who liberated the female body. She was the kind of woman who didn't ask permission to exist, and perhaps that's why Chanel made history before she even realized it. While the world insisted on constricting the female body with corsets and suffocating rules, Chanel entered like someone opening a window in a stuffy room. She simplified shapes, shortened fabrics, brought the comfort that no one knew they needed. It was almost as if she were saying, "You already carry enough pain, let me at least lighten the load with clothing." And, in that seemingly simple gesture, she began a silent revolution. Many people don't realize it, but Chanel's genius stemmed from her own vulnerability. She knew the feeling of being limited, emotionally, socially, financially, and each creation was a direct response to that. When she liberated the female body, she was liberating herself as well. And perhaps that's why her pieces were so authentic. They were practical solutions to real pains, very similar to those anyone faces when trying to live a life that doesn't suit them. It's no wonder that so many women saw themselves in her and confidently followed her path. Chanel's strength lay not only in fashion, but in the courage to rewrite what it meant to be a woman, in a time when everything seemed predetermined. Her clothes said what many couldn't say aloud. You can move, you can work, you can be free. And the more her style took shape, the more the world changed along with her. But this newfound freedom would soon find a powerful counterpoint. A man who believed that beauty lay not in simplicity, but in a return to lost dreams and opulence. Christian Dior and the new look, the return to luxury, and the royal silhouette. When Dior appeared, it seemed as if the whole world took a deep breath for the first time since the war. Women, exhausted by rationing, forced simplicity, and the harshness of daily life, saw in him an unexpected invitation. Shall we dream again? The new look emerged with cinched waists, wide skirts, and fabrics that seemed to embrace a femininity kept tucked away for years. It was as if he were returning a piece of magic hidden by the harshness of the times. And this emotional rescue was so strong that it became an immediate phenomenon. Dior's genius lay in his profound understanding of the human desire for beauty, even when no one dared to ask for it. He believed that luxury was not excess, but healing. The way he designed clothes, almost like sculptures, showed that he saw the female body as a work of art, not as a prison. And this caused many women to reconnect with their own self-esteem in a way that seemed forgotten. Dior didn't sell clothes. He sold hope, and that changes everything. But the charm of the new look brought a powerful provocation. While Chanel celebrated movement and freedom, Dior celebrated form, structure, and almost regal glamour. It was as if he were saying, simplicity can be beautiful, but grandeur also deserves its place. And this contrast, as elegant as it was intense, was only the first step towards the philosophical collision that was about to happen, a clash of worlds that would redefine fashion forever. Clash of philosophies. Minimalist freedom versus structured novel. When you see Chanel and Dior side by side, it becomes clear that it wasn't just fashion. It was a philosophy of life. Chanel believed that the body needed to breathe, move, live, which is why her minimalism was almost a form of emotional liberation. Dior believed that the body deserved to be celebrated, elegantly shaped, as if each woman carried within her a sleeping royalty. While one dissolved rules, the other built new structures. And it is precisely there that the most beautiful tension of this rivalry arises. This clash wasn't just aesthetic, it was ideological. Chanel's clothes said, "Be practical, be light, be yourself." Dior's murmured, "Allow yourself to be extraordinary, even if it requires more form, more presence, more impact." It was almost like observing two ways of looking at life, one that seeks simplicity and one that seeks grandeur. Neither was wrong. Both spoke to different women, at different times. And this silent dialogue formed one of the most profound debates in the history of elegance. Over time, fashion could no longer ignore this dichotomy, and neither could the public. Some women wanted the fluidity that Chanel championed. Others fell in love with the theatricality that Dior offered. Each choice said something about identity, purpose, and even emotional state. And as these tensions grew, the fashion world prepared to experience an intense phase, in which each decade seemed to force women to choose which universe they wished to inhabit. A choice that would become even more evident in the following decades. The aesthetic war of the 1950s and 60s, when the world chose sides. The 1950s and 60s were like a grand stage where Chanel and Dior finally ceased to be just styles and became icons. Women of the time weren't just buying clothes, they were choosing a stance. Chanel represented the practicality of the modern woman, who was beginning to drive, work, and occupy spaces previously unimaginable. Dior represented the glamour of the post-war era, the desire to feel elegant, special, almost cinematic. And the more the world transformed, the more inevitable this division seemed. In practice, it was easy to identify each woman's tribe. Women who sought independence chose Chanel because its clothes allowed for movement, a full schedule, and autonomy. Those who sought to express power through beauty, often influenced by cinema and the stars of the time, embraced the Dior universe with its silhouettes that resembled dance steps. It was almost like looking at two versions of the same woman in different mirrors. And, as always, the mirror she chose said a lot about who she wanted to be. This aesthetic war also began to shape magazines, editorials, and even the pop culture of the time. It was common to see debates in fashion columns, where experts compared philosophies, as if analyzing rival teams before a big game. And the most intriguing thing is that, as society moved towards a phase of cultural freedom, new tensions arose, tensions that would become even stronger when both creators left this world, and their homes had to learn to survive without them. The fall, mourning, and rebirth. The post-founders era. When Chanel and Dior parted ways, the fashion world felt as if it had lost two beacons at once. It was like walking through a city after a blackout. Everything was still in place, but the light was gone. The house of Chanel fell into a heavy silence, without a clear direction, trying to preserve Coco's legacy without knowing how to reinvent it. Dior, in turn, experienced an abrupt shock. Losing Christian at his peak was like having its future ripped away while still under construction. Both fashion houses faced the same question: how to go on without those who gave us soul. This period was not just one of mourning but of strategic vulnerability. Collections hesitated, the public perceived a lack of identity, and the market began to pressure for innovations that no one knew exactly how to deliver. It was like watching two queens try to maintain their thrones while learning, for the first time, to govern without a monarch. Many brands that went through such crises simply disappeared. But Chanel and Dior had something few possess: a legacy strong enough to be rebuilt, even if it required courage and risky decisions. And, gradually, the fashion houses realized that the Renaissance would come not from the literal repetition of the founders, but from the interpretation of their spirits. They needed someone who understood not only the clothes, but the philosophy behind them. And when that understanding finally arrived, fashion would witness a return as grand as it was unexpected, especially in the case of Chanel, which would find its greatest renaissance in the hands of an eccentric and brilliant German who would change everything, as you will see below. Karl Lagerfeld, the man who resurrected Chanel and changed the game. When Karl Lagerfeld joined Chanel in 1983, many said the Maison was asleep. But he didn't see sleep. He saw potential. He entered like someone opening the windows of an old house and realizing that, behind the dust, there is impeccable architecture waiting to be illuminated. Karl had this rare ability to respect the past without kneeling before it, and that's why he managed to bring Coco's legacy back to life, without turning it into a museum. It was almost as if he had a spiritual conversation with her with each collection. Karl's impact was immediate because he understood that the essence of Chanel was freedom, not nostalgia. He brought tweed to new generations, transformed classic symbols into contemporary desires, and made Chanel more than a brand, a cultural phenomenon. And the most impressive thing is that he did all this without losing his humor, irreverence, and that almost theatrical audacity that only he possessed. It was like watching someone reinvent an opera without changing the score, only adding light, rhythm, and emotion. Under his leadership, Chanel once again occupied shop windows, magazine covers, and above all, the female imagination. Karl gave the brand back what it had lost: relevance. And while Chanel was reborn with strength, Dior was also undergoing its own strategic moves, bringing in directors who would shape new chapters for the Maison. The two houses returned to the scene with renewed energy, preparing the ground for the new aesthetic rivalry that would dominate the coming decades. The modern Dior, from Galliano to Mary Grace, the power of theater and poetry. When John Galliano took over Dior, it seemed as if the theater had gained a new stage. He arrived with extravagance, drama, and an almost cinematic sensibility to tell stories through clothing. His shows were spectacles, literature, painting, and fantasy walking together on a catwalk that seemed to have no limits. He was the one who brought back that aura of spectacle that Christian Galliano so valued. And for years, Dior lived in an era of pure imagination, almost as if it had found a new dream to dress. Following Galliano's turbulent departure, the Maison underwent restructuring until it found in Maria Grazia Chiuri a new way of interpreting romanticism. She brought politics, poetry, and contemporary delicacy, transforming dresses into statements of identity. Her embroidery speaks, her transparencies converse, her printed phrases echo modern debates about femininity and strength. It's as if Dior discovered it could be theatrical, without ceasing to be conscious. And this balance opened doors for a generation seeking meaning beyond aesthetics. Today, modern Dior is a blend of stage presence, manifesto, and heritage. It honors the past without allowing it to limit its future, keeping alive the duality between fantasy and cultural responsibility. While Chanel shines with the irreverence that Karl Lagerfeld consolidated, Dior continues to dance between art and activism, making it clear that elegance can also carry a message. And this contemporary rivalry, made of both strategy and emotion, only intensifies when both enter the digital age together, a terrain where the competition gains a new depth. The battlefield of the 21st century. Influence, marketing, and digital culture. In the 21st century, the rivalry between Chanel and Dior has moved beyond the catwalk and into a much quieter and far more powerful territory: the Internet. Now, it's not enough to create an impeccable dress. It's necessary to create a moment, an impact, a symbol that survives the whirlwind of social media. Chanel bets on an aesthetic that blends nostalgia with freshness, always reinforcing the aura of tradition that Karl Lagerfeld left behind. Dior, on the other hand, invests in strong visual narratives, cinematic campaigns, and cultural dialogues that touch on current debates. The war, once aesthetic, is now also strategic. What has changed is that the public no longer observes from afar. They participate. Likes, comments, reposts, videos, reactions, everything builds the relevance of a collection. Chanel dominates aspirational desire, the kind that makes a person think, "One day I'll get there." Dior dominates immediate emotion, the feeling that that piece says something about who you are now. And both use global ambassadors, celebrities, and influencers as key pieces on this new chessboard. Today, every post is a fashion show. Every collaborator is a spokesperson. Every second counts. What's most curious is how this digital battle reveals something profound. It's not just about fashion, but about narratives capable of capturing the collective imagination. Chanel bets on continuity, on the classic, confident, inaccessible woman. Dior bets on discourse, on the woman who thinks, speaks, and takes a stand. And as these narratives expand across the world, the public wonders which one represents the future of elegance. An answer that begins to take shape when we reach the final moment of this journey. The question that nobody really wants to answer. The final question: is there really a winner in the war of elegance? When you reach the end of this journey, it's almost natural to want to choose a side, as if the whole story were a championship, and we needed to point out a champion. But the truth is that Chanel and Dior aren't fighting for the same trophy. They're competing in emotionally different territories. Chanel speaks directly to the woman who seeks autonomy, lightness, movement. Dior speaks to those who desire magic, poetry, exuberance. And perhaps that's why this rivalry never officially ended, because each reigns in its own kingdom. The curious thing is that both Chanel and Dior survived for decades precisely because they didn't try to negate each other. Elegance isn't a straight line. It's a field of possibilities, and the two houses occupied extremes that, ironically, complement each other. When a woman wears Chanel, she declares powerful simplicity. When she wears Dior, she declares an unforgettable presence. And both of these truths have a place in the female heart because they represent different moments of the same life. No brand wins when the public wants not just clothes, but stories. So, is there a winner? It depends on what you believe elegance to be. For some, it's liberating minimalism. For others, it's romance that elevates. The only certainty is that this rivalry continues, adapting to new generations, each defending its ideal with renewed intensity. And now that you understand this profound duality, we can move on to the most captivating part of your script, the powerful introduction that will prepare the viewer to immerse themselves in this eternal battle between two legends. Ultimately, the real question was never, which brand is better, but who do you choose to be when you wear your own elegance? Chanel and Dior are merely mirrors, each reflecting a type of strength that already exists within you. Perhaps you prefer the lightness that liberates you, or perhaps you are the type of person who shines when you allow yourself a little grandeur. And if you've stopped to think about it now, that's exactly the power these stories have. They make you see yourself. But tell me, which vision of elegance resonated more with you? The intelligent simplicity of Chanel, or the carefully crafted romance of Dior? And, even more importantly, what does this choice reveal about how you approach life? Do you seek movement or presence, freedom or impact? There is no right answer. There is self-knowledge. And that's what transforms fashion into identity. If this content opened your mind, gave you new perspectives, or simply sparked your curiosity about the world of haute couture, then you're in exactly the right place. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue diving with me into these universes that go far beyond luxury. Universes that help you understand the world and understand yourself. So, ready for the next chapter of this journey?